Palazzo Vecchio. It's the town hall of Florence. Governance took place here. This building was designed to host the city council, which was composed of chief members of the guild in Florence. I am so entranced by the hand-painted frescoes. I can't help myself but to look up and up. Follow me as we walk into the great hall and look up. This medieval fortress was actually built upon Roman ruins. The entire construction rests on top of the ancient theater of Roman colony of Florence, which dates back to the 1st century AD. Cultures building on top of each other. Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo had been originally selected to construct the two large murals, and both were never completed. Vasari painted on top of the unfinished works by the two artists depicting battle scenes of the Italian War in 1551 and 1559. This room is actually home to a famous scene in the movie Inferno, shot in 2016. I have now come face to face with Niccolò Machiavelli. His bust, an uncanny resemblance of the man who lived long, long ago in Florence. There is something creepy about staring into his eyes.
One who deceives will always find those who allow themselves to be deceived. It is better to be feared than loved. If you cannot be both, if an injury has to be done to a man, it should be so severe that his vengeance need not be feared. Never attempt to win by force. What can be won by deception? Men are so simple of mind, and so much dominated by their immediate needs, that a deceitful man will always find plenty who are ready to be deceived.
One could not help but to think of our current leaders and how they must have learned their techniques from Machiavelli's playbook. He's most famous for his books Art of War or The Prince. Machiavelli was an interesting man, the inspiration for Robert Greene's book, The 48 Laws of Power. Niccolò Machiavelli was born on May 3, 1469 in Florence. He rose to power as the secretary of Florentine Republic, becoming a diplomat, statesman, and writer. He is most famous for The Prince, wrote in 1513, which brought him a reputation of an atheist and immoral cynic. Once the Medici family returned to power, Machiavelli was imprisoned, tortured, and sent into exile, having been suspect of conspiracy. We can all see how leaders of today have still studied Machiavelli. Is this good or bad? One thing's for sure, leaders to this day still want to conquer, whether it is land or your mind. Dante Alighieri, known for Dante's Inferno, or the Divine Comedy. 700 and some odd years later, we still refer to his work to this very day. We are looking at a plaster copy of his death mask that was originally made with wax that is now lost in time. Staring at this mask makes me feel a little bit eerie, like he's here with us in some form. His poem, The Divine Comedy, is an absolute masterpiece, and the story stood the test of time. The poem format is absolutely brilliant. It was written during his time of exile. We will get into that in a bit. He was an Italian poet, writer, philosopher, and political thinker, a trailblazer who was years ahead of his time artistically. Dante. He was an Italian poet, writer, philosopher, and political thinker. In his early years, about 9, he was completely infatuated with a girl named Beatrice. Struck by her beauty, like Cupid shot an arrow into his heart, he fell into a trance of lust. It was love at first sight. Exile gave Dante a lot of time to think. He started writing the Divine Comedy after his banishment. This poem follows the allegorical journey through hell, inferno, purgatory, and paradise, paradiso. Starting out guiding by Virgil and later Beatrice, his love. He wrote this about his path to salvation, a philosophical and moral judgment. The poem was originally written in a vernacular Italian way instead of Latin or Greek, which allowed the work to be published to a much wider audience, contributing majority to world literacy. He was a trail runner ahead of his time. He loved and fought for his moral values at the point of exile and is still an inspiration to others. He died September 14th, 1321 at the age of 56, and Dante still looks over Florence to this day. Welcome to the Ponte Vecchio Bridge, one of the most romantic spots of Florence, and it was built very close to the Roman crossing. The Ponte Vecchio, or Old Bridge, was only bridge across the Arno in Florence until 1218. One of the ancient fort towers that originally guarded the entrance to the bridge. The Mandalay Tower is one of the only that still remains. The bridge was built in stone after the flood of 1345, and then shops have been present on the Ponte Vecchio since the 13th century. You can see the little shops there, and then on the top was this amazing corridor that the Medici would walk through. The windows and artistic elements were added after the shops sold to merchants like tanners, blacksmiths, and butchers. Today, many jewelry shops like Rolex are located in the Ponte Vecchio. Florence is fully enriched with story after story. You could spend your whole life here and never uncover all the stories. And I've only scratched the surface of what's taken place here over the centuries. I am deeply fascinated by the artists who lived here and worked and took blood, sweat, and tears to create their art. Artists like Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Botticelli, just to name my favorites. In our next episode, we will go to the Uffizi Gallery to explore the Italian Renaissance and the artistry that took place here. See you next time.
Bye.